Olivia Flood-Wylie.
Everybody, my family has been visiting for a week, so I'm less prepared than I usually would be. So there's going to be a lot of notebook reference in this one, so just prep yourselves for that. As I said recently, my family has been visiting for a week, which is that fun combo of like, yay, and like, oh, Jesus. Christ, cool. I've been trying a new thing in adulthood, which is just being drunk around my family, which I've found has really helped with a lot of it. It's also a weird thing, though, because sober Olivia and drunk Olivia have vastly different moral compasses. So, like sober Olivia, I was in my apartment the other day and a couple was touring it to see if they wanted to rent it. And I was in a bad mood, so I was a little grumpy with them. And afterwards, immediately I was like, oh my God, like, what if me being in a bad mood meant they like didn't properly assess the closet space? What if they can't really look at how this apartment is? What if they move into the wrong place because of my actions and they really don't know if like this place is right for them? I just feel awful about myself. Drunk Olivia once told a beloved friend that he was a baby-assed bitch boy because he wouldn't give me a cigarette. And neither of us smoked at the time, so that feels a tiny bit iffy. It's fine though, because I come from a bizarre family of weird people who've done weird things. So like my grandfather married a 26-year-old woman from a foreign country when he was roughly 80. And they were both very insistent, like it's definitely not about the green card. It's for sure about love. And we were all like, yeah, sure, it is. And then she got here and she immediately sued my grandmother for her jewelry, lost, and then just dipped. Regularly forget that happened because that's not the weirdest thing that's happened in our family in the last few years. Like every couple of years someone will be like, do you guys remember Jane? And we're like, oh shit, that's right. That's crazy that happened. Oh my God. What do you guys think Jane is up to? I bet she's thriving because she's no longer affiliated with us. So that seems cool. My grandma will also do a thing where she'll just drop huge pieces of information on me out of nowhere. So when I was like 14, we were hanging out and she ended a story by being like, and that's why I think your Uncle Eddie killed his second wife. And I was like, Grandma, you can't just say that. I was like, Grandma, I'm 14. You can't just drop that on me. And she was like, deal with it. You little bitch. That's paraphrasing. That's not how my grandma talks to me. But it is the essence of it. Like, to be clear, she's called me smartass as a pet name since I was 7, so we're not super far from the truth. But it's also mostly, like, that postmodern thing where, like, telling a version of the truth gives you a closer sense of what actually happened than telling the truth. So what she actually said might have been like, I think you're old enough to handle that, but we both know that what really passed between us was her saying, deal with it. You little bitch. I think we all know that. There's my pet. There it is. Good. Yeah, so she visited me here in Amsterdam, which I managed to forget in the span of that story, even though she left yesterday. That's fine. Amsterdam is a super cool city. She had an amazing time. She was really happy. It's a very expensive city, which I think is a little much for a city where it feels like 70% of the time it's just lightly spitting on you. But that's fine. That's just like one thing. That's okay. It also feels consistent, though, because I realized the other day that as much as I recognize the Dutch are better than me in every way, Dutch does sound like a bunch of people just gearing up to spit on you. They never quite get there. And when I first realized that, I was like, that's a great joke, because I can be like, that's a metaphor for the Dutch people, you know? Like, they're just constantly gearing up to spit on you, but they never quite get there. But I realized the joke isn't good because the metaphor doesn't work, because I'm pretty sure if a Dutch person wanted to spit on you, I think they just spit on you. I don't think that barely get close to it, so that's okay. A second thing I decided when I got to Amsterdam is I was like, I'm gonna do a whole no dating thing, because I've had some weird experiences there. Part of it is that even the pros of being a woman when you're dating aren't really pros. Like, you're like, oh, I can't wait to outlive my life partner. That'll be a cool 3 to 5 years at the end. I'll just show up at his funeral and I'll be like, take that, the patriarchy. I made it. The other thing is that I've dated men on both ends of like the nice guy spectrum, where like some are like really assholes and some are self-proclaimed feminists who have somehow also managed to make that suck. So like when you're kissing those guys, you can just feel how proud of themselves they are, that they think you're a human. And then there used to be this thing in high school where like if you didn't know what to do with your tongue while you were kissing someone, you should just write the alphabet. With those guys, you can just feel them writing, I'm not like the other boys. And you're like, I get it, Jerry. You have sisters. You know what it's about. And then when they're going down on you, it's not that they're bad, it's just that every time they come up, they look like they've just single-handedly closed the wage gap. And it's just a lot of energy to be coming at you when you're in like a vulnerable position. That's just a lot to be happening. So, ladies are having an interesting time lately. We've had a lot of progress, which is cool. There's about an infinite amount of ground left to cover. But my favorite thing is listening to men who've decided that that's all over and sexism is done. And they're like, listen, men are oppressed too. Just last week, I was made to feel uncomfortable. And you're like, is there more to that story? I don't know what you're talking about. That's all that I was saying. My favorite subgroup of men, though, are incels, which is short for, let me finish. It's short for involuntary celibates, which are men who've created their entire identity around the fact that women won't have sex with them. And I love listening to them complain about women with no self-awareness, because like the meanest thing a woman could do to them is be like, listen, I just want to be friends with you. And so a woman will be like, a man followed me home from a date and tried to attack me, and I was generally like scared for my life. And they'll be like, why don't you stop being so fucking dramatic? And then an incel will be like, I was talking to a woman last week, and she was like, hey, I really like you as a friend. And the other incels will be like, listen, man, do you want us to kill her? Because we'll definitely kill her for you. That feels like a reasonable reaction to this problem for all of us. What's next? Oh, good. I'm glad to relive this memory for all of you. A lot of personal experience with dating. I lived in a national forest in the United States, which is where I'm from. I'm sorry. I can't do anything about it. And I went to a cave with my roommate, and we spent the night in a cave. And we ran into 2 men who were also spending the night in the cave, because it turns out when you live in a cave, you don't have a lot to say about who else is there. And the worst possible thing could happen, which is that my roommate started flirting with one of the other guys. And I had no interest in the other one, which made things weird instantly. And then they hit us with the worst possible line that a group of men could say to you in a cave at night, which is, we built a hot tub outside this cave. Would you 2 like to join us? And I was caught in a dilemma of like, do I completely shut down my roommate's possibility for sex tonight? And also lose out on what sounds like an interesting experience, like being in a hot tub outside a cave, for the sake of not feeling uncomfortable. So I was like, I'm gonna take one for the team. Fuck it, Stephanie. You owe me $1,000. Let's go to the hot tub. And so we went to the hot tub, and it was fine for a little bit until my roommate started making out with the guy. And it wasn't a large hot tub, being that it was built on a mountain outside a cave. And so I could feel instantly his friend's attention just turn to me. And I've never fully rotated my body the other way. So, and I was talking to no one who was listening to me. I was like, this river is so beautiful. Have any of you looked at this river? This is amazing. It was like The Exorcist, because all of my body had to be focused one way, but I somehow managed to completely 180-degree turn all of the rest of me in order to not focus on the man behind me who was trying to kiss me. And then a worse thing happened, which is my roommate was just like, fuck it. And she left with the other guy to go back to the cave. So then I was just alone in a hot tub with this other guy. And I really played myself because they had put me in charge of picking the music for that night. And I had decided, wouldn't it be hilarious if partway through the night, Red, Red Wine by Bob Marley started playing. I did not count on the fact that half of our party would have left by then, which meant that they left. He and I were sitting in silence, and he hit me with the greatest pickup line I've ever received, which was, "I'm clean, do you want to have fun with me?" And I had to, the toughest decision of my life, say, no thank you. I don't want to do that. I'm not just gonna take your word for it here in this hot tub on a mountain. And then he was like, okay. And we sat in silence, and I was like, this will be fine. I just have to wait until I think my roommate is done having sex. More accurately, I think I have to wait until his friend is done having sex, which is probably shorter. And so we were sitting in silence while I waited for that, and then the crooning sounds of Bob Marley and the Wailers, Red, Red Wine, started echoing through the campground that we were in. And there was no way to really explain to this man that I had just rejected, like, it was a joke earlier. I'm so sorry for what I'm doing to you now. But here we are. And he was just like, and I was like, this is the worst night of my life. So we sat there in silence, and I couldn't get out of the hot tub to reach my phone because I was all wet at that point from the hot tub. So I just had to sit in it, which was a real lesson in just accepting the conditions of your life to me. It was just being like, right now, I'm in a hot tub with a man named Ben, who I can't control. We're listening to Red, Red Wine. We're not gonna have sex tonight, based on my decision, and I have to stay here, being a good roommate, until Stephanie is done having sex with his roommate in a cave. And you know what? It turned out fine. I only moderately injured myself trying to sprint back to the cave as soon as I felt like our time was up. I bloodied my knee on a rock, sprinting, and the guy was like, "Did you hurt yourself?" And I was like, "Nope." And I rolled into my sleeping bag, and that sleeping bag has been forever ruined because it was covered in blood. But that's fine. A small price to pay for not having to hang out with a man for a second longer. I would do it again in a heartbeat. What else is next? Yeah. So I came here based on all of the things that I've said previously, and I was like, I'm not going to date anybody. Which I don't think I need to explain any further. That just made sense. And I was like, I'm just going to be here by myself, alone, single, not dating anybody, alone. I'm not going to be with a man. So I'm fairly certain I'm going to move in with my boyfriend in a couple of months, and that's fine. I'm fine with it. It's going to be totally okay, I think. I don't know. I have no proof for that statement based on everything else that I've ever done, but I think that it's okay. And it's interesting because he's 10 years older than me, which is fine. I think if we were 45 and 35, no one would question it. I think it's weird because he's 33 and I'm 24, and I think having someone who's thoroughly outside of that time of life closely observe you be in your early 20s feels very weird, because your early 20s just feels like chaos happening in slow motion. A lot of it feels like when you're like texting someone platonically, and out of nowhere, there's no romance. You're just coworkers texting, you're just friends, and they just send you a winky face out of nowhere. And you're just sitting there like, what did I do to deserve this treatment? And how can I stop it from ever happening again? And what could I have done differently to make me never feel this way ever again? And things are fine, it's just that absolutely everything about this situation has changed, and now I need to make sure that I never feel this way again. And so having someone closely observe that feels weird. But I think it's hard to tell when you've matured. I've gotten a lot more zen about Candy Crush, so that I'm proud of, and that feels cool. I also found that my dreams have changed a lot as I've gotten older. Like, I'm a waitress in the Netherlands. I'm not good at it, but that's fine, because we're in the Netherlands. Standard is very low. I also don't speak Dutch, but I found that I can bluff my way through shifts at work enough so people can be like, I'd like to order with you, or I need to go to the bathroom, and I can just answer in English and things will be fine. The one thing I get caught up in is that the sentences in Dutch for I'd like to order and I'd like to pay are very similar, which means that about 40% of the time someone will come up and say in Dutch, I'd like to order, and I'll go, yeah, of course, and then I'll walk away. And I do feel guilty about it when I look at their table and I'm like, oh, there's no bill here, they definitely wanted to order and I just left. But I feel like I'm giving them the authentic Dutch experience. I go up to a waiter and they're like, I'd like to order, and the waiter's like, definitely. On my time. You'll figure it out. I've also found that being an adult is interesting because the majority of my friends who are young adults are like kind of anxious and sad, and that's fine. That's all right. Because I feel like being anxious adds just sort of a low level of like excitement and drama to everything that you do. So like my period was like 8 hours late last week, and I was like, God, the world looks so different when you're bearing a child. You know, it's just, everything is so crazy now that I'm going to raise a life in this world. That's insane. But I do feel like I've learned a lot of things from dealing with my grandmother going into life, which is that anytime like one of my friends is super anxious and sad and I'm like, God, what do we do? How would they deal with it? You just go like, hey, deal with it. You little bitch. And they're like, yeah, no, that feels appropriate in this situation. That's my time, Patrick. Thank you.